Dr. Elena Reyes stared at the holographic display, her fingers tracing the unusual energy signatures emitted by the alien vessels. The Valkyrie delegation had been on Earth for 3 days now, and something about their movements continued to bother her. They'd moved with such careful precision, as if every step required calculation. "They're struggling with our gravity," she muttered, making another note in her research tablet. "Their muscle density suggests evolution on a world with perhaps 60% of Earth's gravitational pull." Behind her, Captain James Chen studied tactical overlays of the solar system, where dozens of crystalline Valkyrie ships maintained position beyond Mars' orbit. "Their technology is at least a century beyond ours," he said quietly. "If this comes to conflict, conventional warfare would be suicide." Elena turned from her display. "Then we don't fight conventionally." "James, look at this footage again." The recording showed the Valkyrie ambassador examining a simple apple, his crystalline exoskeleton glinting under Earth's sunlight. His movements were elegant but measured, his breathing apparatus working harder whenever he moved quickly. "They take rest cycles every 4 hours," Elena continued. "Their endurance is limited compared to ours, and notice how they avoid direct sunlight. Their compound eyes are adapted for a dimmer star than Sol." Outside the research facility, crowds had gathered in major cities worldwide, some welcoming the visitors with hope, others protesting with fear. The Valkyrie had promised peaceful integration, technological advancement, and an end to human conflict. Many found their offers compelling. Elena's communication device chimed with an encrypted message from the Lunar Observatory. The data confirmed her suspicions. The Valkyrie vessels were deploying small probes throughout the solar system, mapping resources and defensive capabilities. "They're preparing for something," Chen said, reviewing the new information. "These aren't diplomatic patterns." A soft knock interrupted them as Dr. Kavita Sharma entered, her expression grave. "The genetic analysis is complete," she reported. "The biological samples we've collected from their discarded materials show significant engineering. Their genome is remarkably uniform, almost no variation between individuals. It's as though they've been selectively bred for millennia." Elena's mind raced through evolutionary principles. Species with limited genetic diversity typically evolved in isolated environments, with few natural pressures. Without the constant challenge of adaptation, they would develop specialized but inflexible biological systems. "That's our advantage," she said suddenly. "Humans evolved facing constant environmental changes, predators, diseases. Our adaptability isn't just behavioral, it's written into our DNA." Captain Chen nodded slowly, understanding forming in his eyes. "We've survived ice ages, pandemics, and our own self-destructive tendencies. Our history isn't just a record of survival, it's proof of our resilience." As if on cue, their monitors flickered with breaking news. The Valkyrie ambassador was addressing the United Nations, his translated voice smooth and reasonable as he explained how 17 other species had benefited from Valkyrie guidance. The camera panned across the assembly, showing the diplomatic corps' carefully neutral expressions. But Elena noticed something the cameras missed: the subtle positioning of Earth's security forces, the barely perceptible communication between military representatives. Humanity wasn't as divided as the Valkyrie believed. Beneath our apparent conflicts lay a deeper unity, a shared understanding that transcended our differences. "They think they know us," Chen whispered. "That will be their first mistake." Commander Zixtal reviewed the surveillance recordings for the 3rd time, mandibles clicking in frustration. The humans' reaction to the accidental beam collapse had been illuminating and deeply concerning. "Replay the stress analysis," he ordered. The holographic display reconfigured, showing heat signatures of the humans as they lifted the 300-kilogram support beam. Their muscle fibers should have torn under such strain. Instead, their biological systems had simply adapted. "Impossible," muttered his chief biologist. "Their muscular efficiency exceeds our models by 43%. And their coordination, there was no verbal communication, yet they moved in perfect synchronicity." Zixtel turned to the viewport overlooking the lunar landscape. Earth hung in the black sky, swirling blues and whites that now seemed more threatening than beautiful. His mission parameters had been clear: assess, integrate, and harvest. The Vekari Imperium had classified humans as a Category 3 species, technologically competent but physically unimpressive. That assessment now appeared dangerously flawed. The gravity differential explained some of it. The biologist continued. They evolved in conditions we would consider crushing. But there's more. Their endocrine systems release compounds under stress that temporarily enhance their physical capabilities. On the other side of the lunar base, Dr. Elena Reyes discreetly collected environmental samples while maintaining her diplomatic smile. The Vekari facility was maintained at precisely 19.3 degrees Celsius with 17% oxygen content, significantly cooler and thinner than Earth standard. She slipped a small sensor pad against a wall junction, its camouflaged surface blending perfectly with the crystalline architecture. The engineering is remarkable, she commented to her Vekari guide, genuinely impressed by a water reclamation system that operated at near-perfect efficiency. Our resource management evolved over millennia, the guide explained proudly. Your species still wastes nearly 30% of your biological resources. Elena nodded thoughtfully. We've always been somewhat inefficient, she agreed. Our redundant systems consume extra energy. What she didn't mention was that those redundancies, backup organs, cellular repair mechanisms, neural plasticity, were what allowed humans to survive catastrophic injuries that would instantly kill most species. Their inefficiency was, paradoxically, their greatest strength. Back at the Earth Embassy, Captain Chen received Elena's encrypted data packet. Its contents confirmed their emerging theory. The Vekari, for all their technological superiority, had evolved in a controlled environment with few survival pressures. Their bodies were optimized for efficiency rather than resilience. They'd never had to adapt, he realized, sharing the findings with his coalition of international military leaders. Their evolution prioritized cognitive development at the cost of physical adaptability. General Yamamoto from the Pacific Alliance nodded grimly. Then we have an advantage they cannot match. No matter how advanced their weapons, warfare ultimately comes down to adaptation. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Commander Zixtal made his decision. The diplomatic approach would continue outwardly, but invasion preparations would accelerate. He dispatched stealth probes to map Earth's defense systems and identify optimal landing zones. What he couldn't know was that Dr. Reyes had left behind more than just passive sensors. The seemingly decorative gift presented to the Vekari leadership, an artistic representation of Earth's oceanic currents rendered in blown glass, contained microscopic transmitters that would map the entire lunar base's communication network. The first move in humanity's counteroffensive had already been made, invisible to an enemy who still believed they held all the advantages. The biological agent was supposed to be foolproof. The Vekari had deployed similar compounds on 16 previous worlds, each time with the same results. Systematic breakdown of neural function, followed by mass incapacitation. Humanity's resistance was unprecedented. Dr. Elena Reyes examined the molecular structure displayed on her lab's holographic projector. Around her, a team of immunologists from 6 continents worked in coordinated silence, their focus intense as they mapped the alien pathogen's interaction with human cellular structures. It's targeting our serotonin receptors, Dr. Kailash Patil observed, highlighting a neural simulation. But look at these samples from different human populations. Elena leaned forward, eyes widening as she processed the data. The receptor configurations vary between genetic lineages. Some are barely affected. Exactly, Kailash confirmed. The agent was designed for a homogeneous target. Our genetic diversity is neutralizing it naturally. Outside the containment facility, the first Vekari ships had appeared in Earth's atmosphere, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns. The neural agent had been meant to incapacitate Earth's defenses before the invasion properly began. Now, Commander Zixtal was forced to accelerate his timeline. On Mars, Colony Director Sophia Kamara received the emergency transmission from Earth Command. The Valkyrie fleet was dividing, with a significant force headed toward the Red Planet. Her colony of 4,000 souls had minimal military resources, just a small security detail and standard defense systems. Evacuation is impossible, she informed her leadership council, her voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. We have 36 hours before they arrive. Let's make them count. The Olympus Mons Mining Collective immediately began reconfiguring drilling equipment into makeshift weapons. The agricultural dome workers harvested all mature crops and sealed the emergency food stores. Medical staff prepared trade centers in the subsurface tunnels. No one panicked. No one suggested surrender. These were people who had chosen to live on the frontier, who faced the daily challenges of surviving on an inhospitable world. Adaptation wasn't just their skill, it was their way of life. When the Valkyrie landing ships breached Mars' thin atmosphere, they expected to find a vulnerable colony in disarray. Instead, they encountered a meticulously prepared resistance. The colony's communications array had been reconfigured to broadcast on frequencies that interfered with Valkyrie coordination systems. Mining lasers, designed to cut through basaltic rock, had been repositioned to target the crystalline weak points in Valkyrie exoskeletons. Most surprising to the invaders was the colonists' use of Mars' lower gravity as a tactical advantage. Humans, already adapted to Earth's heavier pull, moved with startling speed and agility in the Martian environment. Valkyrie soldiers, struggling to coordinate their movements in what they perceived as erratic gravity, found themselves outmaneuvered by physically smaller opponents. Commander Zixtal, monitoring the assault from orbit, observed with growing concern as his first wave suffered unprecedented casualties. The tactical simulations had predicted a 6-hour operation with minimal resistance. The reality was proving dramatically different. Their adaptation rate defies evolutionary models, his science officer noted with reluctant admiration. They're modifying strategies in real time, using environmental factors we classified as disadvantages. As the battle entered its second day, Sophia Kamara transmitted encrypted data packets back to Earth, detailed analyses of Valkyrie weapons, tactics, and physiological responses to different attack vectors. Even in the midst of defending their home, the Mars colonists were gathering intelligence that would prove crucial in the larger conflict. The Valkyrie might take Mars, but the price would be far higher than they had ever anticipated. Commander Zixtal paced the command deck of his flagship, compound eyes reflecting the holographic display of Mars below. The Red Planet had finally been secured, but at a devastating cost. 37% of his invasion force lost to a colony of miners and farmers. "Play the combat recordings again," he ordered, mandibles clicking nervously. The display shifted to show footage from a fallen soldier's visual feed, a human female, physically diminutive by Valkyrie standards, continued fighting despite a visible wound to her torso. Most species would have retreated or collapsed from such an injury. Their pain suppression capabilities exceed all documented species, his chief medical officer noted, and observed their respiratory efficiency. Even with damaged lung tissue, they maintain combat effectiveness. Zixtal turned to his strategic advisor. "How do they communicate their tactical shifts?" "We've jammed all electromagnetic frequencies." "Unknown," the advisor admitted. "Their units continue coordinated action, even when completely isolated from central command. Each human appears capable of independent strategic assessment." This concept was almost incomprehensible to the hive-minded Valkyrie. Their strength had always been perfect coordination, each individual an extension of centralized intelligence. The humans' decentralized approach shouldn't be effective, yet somehow it was proving remarkably resilient. Hidden within the subsurface tunnels of Phobos, Mars' larger moon, Dr. Elena Reyes and a small team of xenobiologists maintained observation of the occupying force. The Valkyrie believed they had complete control of the Mars system. They were unaware that humans had established observation posts throughout the solar system decades earlier, preparing for potential extraterrestrial contact. They're avoiding the polar habitats entirely, Lieutenant Sanjay Mehta noted, reviewing surveillance data. And their troop rotations coincide with exposure time to our water processing facilities. Elena nodded, adding another data point to her growing profile of Vekari weaknesses. Water vapor, or something in it, causes them discomfort. And these audio recordings show their communication patterns disrupting when exposed to frequencies between 17 and 22 kHz. She transmitted the findings via the quantum entanglement communicator, technology the Vekari believe humans were decades from developing. On Earth, Captain Chen received the data packet and immediately convened the Unified Defense Council. Mars has given us invaluable intelligence, he told the assembled military leaders, at great cost. Now we use that sacrifice to prepare our counteroffensive. General Rodriguez of the South American Coalition studied the Vekari ship movements. They maintain precise formations, almost mathematically perfect. Their course corrections happen simultaneously across all vessels. That's it, Chen realized. They're not just coordinated, they're synchronized. Their ships move as a single entity, which means a central control system, Rodriguez finished. Disrupt that, and their advantage becomes a vulnerability. As Earth prepared its response, Commander Zixtel finally received the comprehensive analysis of human prisoners. The results were disturbing. Unlike any species previously encountered, humans showed no standard psychological breaking point. Some resisted interrogation through sheer stubbornness. Others used humor, a concept barely translatable to Vekari understanding. Most confounding, their resistance seemed to strengthen when they believed their actions protected others. They're not just physically resilient, his chief psychologist explained. Their social bonding creates psychological resilience our species cannot comprehend. They don't fight for self-preservation alone. They fight for abstract concepts like freedom and future generations. Zixtel stared at the slowly rotating image of Earth on his display. The beautiful blue world now seemed less like a prize and more like a threat. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something alien to his species' psychology: doubt. Colonel Amara Okafor observed the Vekari assault ships through reinforced bunker viewports as they approached the lunar surface. Her expression remained calm despite the overwhelming force bearing down on Tranquility Base. Behind her, 200 defenders made final adjustments to their equipment, the atmosphere tense but controlled. Sonic disruptors calibrated to 18 kHz, her technical officer reported. Deployment patterns set for maximum coverage. Amara nodded, her mind reviewing the complex defensive strategy one final time. Operation Chameleon wasn't designed to win through superior firepower. Humans couldn't match Vekari technology. Instead, it targeted the fundamental weakness Dr. Reyes had identified: the aliens' dependency on synchronized neural communication. Remember, she addressed her troops, we're not fighting as a unit today. Each of you is your own commander. Your objectives will shift every 15 minutes. Trust your training and your instincts. The concept was antithetical to conventional military doctrine, which emphasized coordinated action. But against an enemy that expected predictable patterns, chaos became a strategic advantage. The first Vekari landing ships touched down precisely on schedule, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the harsh lunar light. Troops deployed in perfect formation, moving with the mathematical precision that characterized their species. Their sensors detected minimal resistance ahead, exactly as expected. Commence Operation Chameleon, Amara ordered, and then smiled slightly. Good hunting. Across the lunar surface, 200 independent actions occurred simultaneously. Sonic disruptors activated at different frequencies, creating an overlapping pattern of interference that shredded the Vekari communication network. Holographic projectors generated false targets. Gravitational modulators. Technology the Vekari believed humans hadn't developed, created patches of intensified lunar gravity that shattered the invaders' brittle exoskeletons. Most disruptive of all was the complete absence of centralized human response. The Valkyrie battle computer continuously sought patterns to predict and counter, finding none. Each human defender operated according to their own assessment of the battlefield, creating a constantly evolving strategy no algorithm could anticipate. Commander Zixtal, monitoring from orbit, watched in growing alarm as his invasion force fragmented. Without their neural link, individual Valkyrie soldiers struggled to adapt. Their species had relied on collective intelligence for so long that independent decision-making had atrophied. "They're jamming our frequency shift protocols," his communications officer reported, antennae twitching anxiously. "Each time we adapt, they modify their disruption pattern." On the lunar surface, Amara led a small strike team through maintenance tunnels beneath the main battlefield. Their objective wasn't to engage enemy forces directly, but to capture intact Valkyrie technology, specifically a neural relay node from one of their command vehicles. "Remember, non-destructive extraction only," she reminded her team as they approached their target. "Dr. Rice needs this intact." The squad moved with practiced efficiency, using sound-dampening technology to mask their approach. The Valkyrie guards, already disoriented by the sonic disruption, never detected them until it was too late. Back at Earth Command, Dr. Elena Reyes received the first battlefield recordings with grim satisfaction. The sonic disruption was working even better than predicted, but something else caught her attention: the Valkyrie soldiers' reaction to human battle cries. "They're experiencing neurological overload," she explained to Captain Chen, highlighting spikes in the aliens' neural activity. "Something about human emotional expression triggers a fear response in their psyche." Chen's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "So not only can we jam their communications, we can potentially induce a panic response," Elena finished. Their evolution never prepared them for the emotional intensity of human combat. For the first time since the invasion began, a cautious hope spread through Earth's command center. The Valkyrie weren't invincible after all, and humanity had just found their psychological Achilles heel. Lieutenant Maya Patil maintained steady eye contact with Commander Zixtal, despite the pain radiating from her cracked ribs. The interrogation chamber aboard the Valkyrie flagship was designed to intimidate, its crystalline walls amplifying sound in specific frequencies known to distress most sentient species. The effect on humans, however, was minimal. "Explain your tactical reorganization protocols," Zixtal demanded, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless English. "How does your species coordinate without central direction?" Maya allowed herself a small smile. "We just figure it out as we go." The commander's compound eyes flickered with frustration, an emotion his species rarely experienced before encountering humans. 6 days of interrogation had yielded minimal useful intelligence, while the prisoner had somehow extracted significant information about Valkyrie ship systems simply by observing her captor's questions and reactions. "Your resistance is irrational," he stated. "The statistical outcome of this conflict is predetermined. Your species cannot match our technological superiority." "Statistics," Maya replied, her voice unexpectedly calm, "don't account for what humans do when backed into a corner." In the adjacent chamber, the Valkyrie chief psychologist observed the exchange with growing fascination. Unlike previous conquered species, humans exhibited a psychological phenomenon his people had no reference for. Under pressure, they became more focused rather than more compliant. The greater the threat, the more resourceful they became. The interrogation was interrupted by an alarm. Security protocols had detected unauthorized access to the ship's environmental systems. Zixtal departed immediately, leaving Maya under guard. What the Valkyrie didn't realize was that the security breach was merely a distraction. The real infiltration was happening elsewhere. Using techniques gleaned from careful observation, Maya had been systematically testing the cell's containment field, identifying microscopic fluctuations in its energy pattern. The Valkyrie, accustomed to total compliance from prisoners, had never encountered a species that could maintain such methodical resistance while appearing to cooperate. As the alarm protocols diverted power throughout the ship, Maya executed her plan. The momentary fluctuation in the containment field was barely perceptible, but it was enough. Within 90 seconds, she had neutralized her guards and accessed an environmental suit designed for a species with entirely different physiology. Making her way through the ship's maintenance conduits, narrow passages the larger Valkyrie rarely used, she reached the vessel's communication hub. The Valkyrie encryption protocols were complex, but Dr. Rai's team had provided all captured personnel with quantum-encrypted knowledge of alien systems hidden in subdermal implants the Valkyrie scanners couldn't detect. On Earth, Admiral Chen received Maya's transmission with stunned disbelief. Not only had she escaped captivity, considered impossible by Valkyrie security standards, but she'd managed to transmit detailed schematics of their flagship's propulsion system. Their faster-than-light drives depend on crystalline matrices, the engineering team reported after analyzing Maya's data. The same material their exoskeletons are made from. And it has the same fundamental weakness, harmonic resonance at specific frequencies. Chen turned to Dr. Reyes, who was already nodding in understanding. If we can generate the right sonic pattern, we could potentially disrupt their entire fleet simultaneously, she finished. But we'd need to broadcast it from multiple points within their formation. The Admiral's expression hardened with resolve. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Prepare a volunteer team of our best pilots. Across the solar system, humanity prepared for its most daring counter-offensive yet, a plan that would never have been possible without Lieutenant Maya Patel's seemingly impossible escape and the unique human capacity to find opportunity in the heart of adversity. Admiral Chen studied the holographic projection of the liberated Nath-4 homeworld, his expression thoughtful as he absorbed the implications of what their new allies were sharing. The crystalline architecture of the Nath-4 cities glittered beneath twin moons, beautiful yet markedly different from the Valkyrie aesthetic, despite both species using similar base materials. Our subjugation occurred 800 of your Earth years ago, explained Elder Kirusha, the Nath-4 representative. His translucent, elongated form shimmered as he manipulated the display to show historical archives. We were the first species they conquered, but not the last. Dr. Elena Reyes observed the genetic data now streaming across her terminal. The Valkyrie modified your population's genome, she noted, identifying telltale markers of artificial selection. Yes, the Elder confirmed solemnly. Each generation, they collected genetic samples from our population. Those deemed optimal were permitted to reproduce. Those with variations were removed. The implications chilled the human delegation. The Valkyrie weren't simply conquerors, they were genetic harvesters, treating sentient species as resources to be cultivated and exploited. Their entire empire was built on biological exploitation. But they miscalculated with humans, Lieutenant Maya Patel observed. Recently recovered from her captivity, she had insisted on participating in the diplomatic mission despite her injuries. Our genetic diversity is too widespread to control. Elder Kirusha's features shifted in what the humans now recognized as an expression of agreement. Your species evolved on a world that demanded adaptation. The Valkyrie evolved on a world that rewarded specialization and homogeneity. They cannot comprehend your biological resilience because nothing in their evolutionary history prepared them for it. Admiral Chen turned to the tactical display, where representatives from 3 other liberated worlds, the avian Krell, the aquatic Vosh, and the silicon-based Ixari, were contributing their knowledge of Valkyrie defense systems. Each species brought unique perspectives and abilities that, individually, had not been enough to resist their conquerors. Together, with humanity's unorthodox approach to warfare, they were creating something unprecedented. A coalition based on diversity rather than uniformity. The Valkyrie homeworld has minimal natural defenses, explained the Krell commander, her feathered crest rising with excitement as she highlighted orbital platforms. They've never been attacked there because no previous species penetrated their outer defensive spheres. Their genetic repository is here, added the Vosh ambassador, his tentacles indicating a massive facility near the planetary North Pole. All their harvested genetic material, collected over millennia of conquest, is stored in a single location. Dr. Rice's eyes widened as she recognized the strategic and ethical implications. That's not just their research, that's their future. Their species is facing extinction without continued genetic harvesting. The Xeri representative, communicating through patterns of crystalline vibrations, confirmed this assessment. Their natural reproduction rate has fallen to non-sustainable levels. Without genetic intervention, using harvested material from other species, the next generation will be their last. Admiral Chen processed this information silently, the weight of the decision before him evident in his expression. Humanity had the knowledge, and now the allies to potentially end the Vekari threat permanently. Yet the scientist in him recognized the tragedy of allowing any sentient species to face extinction. "We don't need to destroy them to win this war," he said finally, his voice quiet but resolute. "We need to offer them something they've never encountered before." The assembled representatives looked at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to disbelief. "What could we possibly offer a species that has tried to conquer us?" asked the Krell commander. Chen's answer was simple yet revolutionary: an alternative to conquest. The Vekari homeworld gleamed beneath the coalition fleet, a perfect sphere of crystalline cities and geometric precision. From Admiral Chen's command vessel, the planet appeared beautiful yet somehow sterile, lacking the chaotic vitality of Earth's ever-changing landscapes. Commander Zixtal stood rigidly in the diplomatic chamber, his exoskeleton polished to ceremonial brilliance. Behind him, the remnants of the once mighty Vekari High Council watched with compound eyes that betrayed no emotion, yet the subtle vibrations of their antennae revealed their agitation to Dr. Rey's trained observation. "You have breached our defensive perimeter with minimal casualties," Zixtal acknowledged, his translator rendering his clicks into precise, measured tones. "Your victory is unprecedented." Admiral Chen nodded but didn't indulge in triumphalism. "We didn't come to destroy your civilization, Commander. We came to understand it." The human delegation moved toward the conference table, joined by representatives from each liberated world. Elder Kirishah of the Nathvor triggered a holographic display showing genetic simulations. "Your species faces extinction within 3 generations," Dr. Rice stated, gesturing to the projections. "Your genetic uniformity has reached critical levels. That's why you harvest genetic material from conquered species. You're trying to save yourselves." For the first time, genuine surprise registered in the Vekari posture. They had assumed humans remained ignorant of their true objective. "Our uniformity was once our strength," Zixtal admitted after a long pause. "Perfect coordination, perfect purpose. But the cost was adaptation. Each generation becomes less viable than the last." "There's an alternative to conquest," Chen said, nodding to Dr. Reyes. She activated her own display, showing complex genetic models. "Targeted gene therapy using synthetic genetic sequences. We can introduce controlled diversity into your population without compromising the traits your species values." The Vekari geneticist stepped forward, mandibles working rapidly as he studied the human proposal. "This approach never occurred to us. Our evolutionary history emphasized uniformity so strongly that diversity was always viewed as contamination rather than strength. That's the fundamental difference between our species," Dr. Rice explained. "Humans evolved on a world that demanded constant adaptation. We survived because of our diversity, not despite it. What you see as disorder, we recognize as resilience." Throughout the chamber, the assembled species, former enemies now tentative allies, watched as understanding slowly registered among the Vekari leadership. Their civilization, built on conquest and uniformity, had encountered its antithesis in humanity, a species that thrived through variation and cooperation. "The shocking truth," Admiral Chen said quietly, "is that we didn't defeat you through superior technology or even strategy. We prevailed because our entire evolutionary history prepared us for adaptation and change." Your society optimized for perfection, ours optimized for survival. Commander Zixtel's posture shifted subtly, a gesture that Dr. Reyes recognized as acceptance. We have much to learn from your species. As the diplomatic proceedings continued, establishing the framework for a new galactic council based on cooperation rather than domination, a profound realization rippled through the assembly. The quality that had made humans seemingly primitive in Vekari assessment, our messy, chaotic diversity, was precisely what had saved both civilizations. The greatest victory wasn't won through weapons or tactics. It was achieved through understanding, the recognition that strength comes in countless forms, and that sometimes the most powerful adaptation is the ability to see value in differences rather than threat.